There is a lot of new tech coming our way, and it's easy to look at other photographers using the latest gear and think, oh my gosh, that photographer is so successful using that stuff, I've got to do what he's doing. I think the more we focus on gear, the less we actually improve. That mindset might be exactly what's holding you back from growing as a photographer. Hi everyone, what's going on? Welcome to my channel. I'm Andrea, and today I want to be sharing with you a mindset shift that goes beyond just gear, that completely transformed my photography journey, enabling me to be more creative and enhancing my technical skills and vision. Let me share a little story with you. Back in 2010, when I was a newbie in photography, I was really obsessed with environmental portraits and flash photography. I remember consuming hundreds of videos by Joe McNally where he utilized multiple speed light flashes with those amazing light modifiers, all controlled by fancy radio triggers. At the time I was just starting out, lacking both the resources and the expertise to replicate McNally's setup, of course. However, my passion and the beginner's belief that my photography would improve more rapidly with a new and expensive system were so strong that I decided to invest in a new camera and a set of 3 professional flashes and softboxes. So I bounced, I ditched my Nikon D60, smashed the piggy bank and placed a pre-order on an online store for the Canon 5D Mark III bundled with a 24 to 105mm lens. I had been dreaming about that camera for months. The total cost was something like $3,500 with the lens. The store was in Rome. After a few days though, on the store's website, the order was still labeled as in progress and no updates of my camera and delivery dates. Well, long story short, after a couple of weeks and many emails, while of course I was still waiting to receive the package, the store filed for bankruptcy and the owner vanished. As you can imagine, my money and camera were gone. I was desperate. I remember I spent an entire week trying to figure out how to get my money back, phoning the store, chatting with other customers facing the same problem on forums online. I was so pissed off, not just for the money I had lost, but because that was my very first big investment in photography, and I had so many ideas I wanted to experiment with the new professional gear. So at that point, with my budget slashed, I opted for the more affordable APS-C camera, the Canon 7D. Lovely camera, paired with a 24 to 105 and just a single speed light. Oh, and I also picked up one of those super cheap kits on Amazon for $20 with a basic translucent umbrella and a cheap light stand. It was a crap, but surely better than nothing. That episode was a sort of turning point for me, and I reframed what had happened and I embraced the challenge of creating something I could be proud of using the constraints set by the gear I had. So I asked one of my friends if he was willing to model for me, and we shot an entire day non-stop. We just played around a lot and it was amazing. I was super excited. I had the opportunity to experiment so many things I hadn't tried before, sometimes struggling with the limitation of the gear. The optical trigger was not as reliable as the radio trigger, and the light stand was a pain in the butt to keep steady. Anyway, despite the challenges, I managed to capture some nice images along with many other terrible shots. But that experience made me realize from a creative standpoint that gear is just one part of the equation. The journey and the creative process were so much more rewarding and exciting that I completely forgot about the gear. Having to deal with only one flash and one lens gave me the freedom to focus on the creative part rather than the technical stuff. I'm not saying gear isn't important, don't get me wrong. Gear, to some extent, can really help you get the job done easier, but don't obsess over it too much. Chances are the camera you already own is more than enough to enable you to take great photos. Anyway, the takeaway of this story is twofold. First, trust your gut. Second, creativity is closely linked to the constraints we put on ourselves. The story I've just shared with you was almost centered around gear, but gear is only one of the main limitations we can set and use to our advantage. Creativity is finding solutions to these challenges. So don't hold yourself back, embrace those constraints because constraints breed creativity. And if you can do that, those constraints will actually make you more creative and deliver big results. So the point I want to make here is the first limitation you can set is eliminating the unnecessary. When you want to go out for a shooting, a great exercise to unlock creativity and embrace constraints is to start by immediately eliminating just one thing. Let's say you have to kill one thing. For example, how often do you really use a specific fixed lens, or the super telephoto lens, or even the drone? Instead of letting the FOMO drive you to pack all the lenses you own, try focusing on just one or two lenses. That's it. Remove the thing that takes that mental energy you are spending on things you rarely use. I've noticed multiple times folks lugging around 5 or 6 lenses in their backpacks, yet they always seem to stick to just 2 of them. It ends up being a hassle, switching lenses all the time, and sometimes they even miss the shot because of it. Think about constraints in a positive way. For instance, for most of my photo trips, I've been using the same camera bodies for nearly 4 years and the same 2 lenses because those are the focal ranges I love the most and feel confident with. At the same time, that limitation encouraged me to explore all the possibilities of the 2 lenses, experimenting with unconventional angles and finding workarounds to get shots without being fixed on the thinking, oh, if I had that lens, I would get a better shot. If I had a bigger sensor, I could crop more without losing too much resolution. Of course, you can experiment with different cameras and lenses. I love trying out new stuff, but you have to be very intentional. By eliminating the unnecessary, you will reduce your overwhelm so much. If there is some piece of equipment that you are not actively using and it's hanging there in your backpack like dust in your brain, just kill it. There is another huge benefit of sticking, for example, with just one lens for a short amount of time. You learn how that lens translates what you see, and it really helps you build confidence on how to take out the most of it. This deeper understanding allows you to anticipate how the lens will render the scene and make more thoughtful compositional decisions. If you are interested in exploring topics like this further, I send out a newsletter every Thursday where I cover similar subjects that I don't share here on YouTube. It's completely free, and you will also receive a free ebook featuring my 4-step framework to instantly improve your compositions. And if you love traveling and you want to improve your photography and editing skills at a deeper, more personalized level, you can join me in one of my photography workshops in wonderful locations. I leave all the links in the video description below. Okay, let's go ahead with the video. Another powerful creative constraint, other than being one of the most important lessons I've learned in my nearly 15 years as a photographer, is about managing expectations. I can't stress enough how important and game-changing it can be in your approach to travel and landscape photography. You know, as outdoor photographers, we have to deal with weather constantly. And we all know how uncooperative it can be. When you have high expectations, you often set yourself up for disappointment if things don't go as planned. Here I was in the Dolomites with a group of students, and as you can see, the weather wasn't ideal. In that photo session we had just thick fog. On those occasions, I guarantee you can really feel the group's motivation level slowly declining. You expect to shoot a big vista of the valley with the lake and the amazing mountains in the background, lit by the warm sunset light, and the only thing you can see is a wall of fog. It can be frustrating, I totally get it. However, that's the perfect opportunity to use constraints to be more creative and experiment different things. So what we have done is focusing on specific details of the landscape. The screenwriter Ray Bradbury framed this concept in a wonderful way. If you're stuck in the general, go specific. If you're stuck in the specific, go general. That's exactly what we have done. We started experimenting by framing different elements of the area, such as trees, rocks, and after a few minutes of wandering around, I stumbled upon a stump with a very interesting shape. I started working the scene with Chris, one of the participants, and we spent about 15 minutes trying to figure out how to frame that stump in an organic way, but nothing. I knew that stump had potential, but we weren't able to find a composition we were happy with. Well, after a few minutes, this gentleman, David, and other participants joined us. And standing just 4 feet away from where Chris and I were, he framed this shot, which I found absolutely brilliant, such an intimate scene that emphasizes wonderfully the lovely shape of the subject. The fog played a crucial role in simplifying the background, and it worked as a sort of diffuser, softening the light and enhancing the dimensionality and soft feeling of the scene. This is the perfect example of how embracing constrictions foster creativity exponentially. We would never have stumbled upon that stump if it weren't for the thick fog. And of course, thank you, David, for graciously allowing me to borrow your composition. Another important takeaway from that session, perhaps the one I enjoyed the most, is the amazing experience of sharing it with other photographers. Working the scene together, exploring different points of view and compositions, discussing technicalities like focus stacking, was a wonderful exercise for the group. Truly a teamwork experience, and we can literally learn from everyone. Embracing constraints for me is all about actually looking at the things you think are constraining you that time, the camera, the lens, the tripod, the lights, or the weather, and actually turning those limitations into creative constraints that help you come up with solutions you never imagined. Learning to accept what is rather than what should be is incredibly powerful. So I'd love to know your thoughts, leave a comment, hit the subscribe button, and thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Ciao!